The 1893 Chicago World's Fair, an exhibition of progress and dominance by one of America's fastest-growing cities. With unprecedented man-made structures and technological advances on display, its attendees were in a buzz with excitement. Though while the people of Chicago marveled at the spectacle of the pristine white city, something much more sinister was taking place in the small community of Englewood in the shadow of the fair. Dr. Henry Howard Holmes was a local business owner in the quiet Chicago suburb who had moved to the area after attending medical school in Michigan. He began working in a small drugstore and would prove himself to be a hard worker, eventually purchasing the store on credit from its owner, Elizabeth Holton. Though not long after selling the store, Holton would mysteriously vanish. When patrons inquired about her absence, Holmes simply replied that she moved away to be with family. Little did his new neighbors know, Holmes was a ruthless killer and con man who left a wake of destruction and death in his travels across the country. With the introduction of the year 1890 came the announcement that Chicago would host the next World's Columbian Exhibition, or World's Fair. Holmes saw an opportunity and quickly began construction on a hotel in the vacant lot across the street from his drugstore that would eventually house tourists that had come to the town to see the fair. Though this was no conventional hotel, Holmes closely oversaw the construction of the three-story structure and was often firing and hiring different contractors to ensure that he was the only person who truly understood the layout of the building. When the hotel was completed, the local townspeople dubbed it the Castle due to its footprint stretching an entire city block and dwarfing all surrounding structures. Inside, it was a labyrinth of twisted hallways, trapdoors, and dead ends that would allow Holmes to have the upper hand on his victims. He would lure mistresses, guests, and employees of the hotel to the upper floors of the castle, where they would meet their fate via a variety of tactics, including gas chambers, hanging rooms, and mutilation. Back when Holmes was attending medical school, he would conduct a scam, in which he would file life insurance policies on fictitious family members, and then steal cadavers from the school's lab to pose as the deceased relatives. Holmes continued this practice at his new residence at the hotel, only this time he didn't use cadavers. He would force employees to take out life insurance policies for which he was the benefactor. Holmes was loyal to no one method of torture or killing. He would lock victims in small hidden chambers in the hotel walls and suffocate them with toxic gas, hang them in a windowless room in the center of the hotel named the Secret Hanging Chamber, and even keep them trapped in a secret bank vault in his office for days to starve to death. Once Holmes had killed his victims, he would take them down to the basement of the hotel, where he would dismember them and rearticulate the skeletons, which he would then sell to local medical schools. Other victims would be incinerated within the building or thrown into one of several lime pits that Holmes built for the purpose of disposing of corpses. Holmes was America's first serial killer in the modern sense of the term. He would eventually confess to that of 27 murders, though it is estimated that his body count could have been as high as 200, making him not only the first, but also one of the country's deadliest killers ever to have lived. After a recession hit Chicago, Holmes packed up and traveled the country, continuing to operate as a con artist and serial killer, murdering victims after making their acquaintance and taking out life insurance policies on them. He would eventually be arrested after an old associate of Holmes gave police a tip-off about his scams. After authorities began investigating deeper into Holmes's operations, they discovered the human remains and other evidence of torture back at the hotel in Chicago. A newspaper would pay Holmes for his confession of 27 murders, though only 9 were confirmed. After Holmes was convicted, he was sent to Moyamensing Prison in Philadelphia to await his execution. He was hung on May 7, 1896, at the age of 34. The story of Henry Howard Holmes would quickly fade from public memory, but would go on to inspire several avenues of pop culture, including books, movies, and TV shows. It is said to have been an influence on American Horror Story's Hotel, as well as being the subject of a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, set to release in 2017. Chicago would end up hosting a second World's Fair in 1933, though this time, guests would be slightly more careful about where they stayed for the night.